Okay, so today we're going to show you, demonstrate for you this Brown & Sharp universal ID/OD grinder. This is their model number 2. There's a model 1 that's smaller and a model 3 that's bigger. So you've got your workhead here that swivels. We just happen to have it loose. It's got 2 nuts on the bottom that you can clamp. This workhead could be used live or dead. Right now it's got a plate on here that the last person had some kind of a chuck mounted to. This gives you a certain chuck nose here, spindle nose. But when you take this plate off, the standard Brown & Sharp face plate is there, and that has a locking device that can either lock the spindle to the driver drum, which is located in here, or unlock the driver drum so that you just rotate a dead center. So it could be live or dead. But in order to work with it live, this has to come off, and then there's a, work with it dead, that has to come off. So we've got an ID spindle mounted here. Has a little catch back here that you let go when you pull this down. I don't want to try to lift that right now. And then you have a lock that locks it in place. You got the tailstock. The wheel head is a special kind of a wheel head in that it has 3 different spots where it could rotate. It's got a nut central in the back here that allows you to twist this head in any angle really that you want, and then you lock it down. There is a scale along the side here. It also is mounted on top of this big round plate here. It's like a sewer cover. It's an eccentric plate. Right now, this whole spindle, this whole wheel, grinding wheel assembly is as close to the workpiece as it can possibly get for doing small parts. If you were doing very large parts, or the largest that you could put on this machine, you would rotate that center portion, and it's like an elliptical. It'll bring the wheel slide to the furthest position or anywhere in between. And then at the very bottom is the main slide that you loosen 2 nuts at the very bottom. You might want to get the video in here. So you got this top slide that we're rotating. And you can also rotate this slide. You have to pull down the pin here. And this nut has to be backed all the way out. It has to be out of the threaded hole down there on the bottom and sticking up here about 1 inch or so. And then with putting a pin, I'd recommend making a couple of pins that just fit in these holes properly. You can rotate this and you'll see how it comes forward and back with the eccentric on here. Then at the very bottom, there's a nut here and a locking nut on the other side where you could swivel the entire cross slide. So you can actually put this cross slide on a 30-degree angle and go in there and grind a face and a shoulder like a standard angle head grinder. This machine is very versatile in those 3 adjustments right there. So that's that. That's your coolant pump motor down there on the floor. The tank is outside the room. This machine is currently wired for 220 volts. Okay. So this machine has in-feed on the left side and on the right side, or both sides, or one or the other, or you can shut it off altogether and you can feed by hand. You've got your feed on the left off or on, your feed on the right off or on. You've got a dwell off or on, and anywhere in between. This is a tarry that it will hold up at each reversal, off or on, and anywhere in between. Here is the increment that your in-feed is going to be each time the table reverses. That's the amount that the hand wheel is going to move. Over here is your speed for your table. Over here is the control knob to start the workhead and start the table moving, depending on how you have this selector switch set. Normally, you might want to have it on what they call lever operated, which is this lever here. So when you first start up the machine, if it's turned on, you're going to get the grinding spindle to come on. You have a jog button here for the workhead. And the first position on this switch will start the workhead. This knob over here is your variable speed. Start the table, the next position with that same lever. These are your sliding dogs. They slide, then they lock into place, but you should make sure that they are locked in, because you could have an accident. So that goes back and forth like that, and this controls the speed. All right, so right now over here, your hand wheel, if you want to come over here, or I don't know where. Right now this is up against the zero or up against the dead stop. Your zero is all the way around on the other side. That's where it comes to zero. After you do your initial setup, you can actually move your wheel in by turning this. While you're on this stop, you're going to actually be grinding until you either make your part the right size by backing it up or coming forward. There's all kinds of different ways. That's just the way I know. In order to go a full revolution on this, manually cranking this thing in or out, you have to lift this lever up and lock it in there. That pulls that stop down and allows you to turn this in or out. Over here is a selector switch that says external or internal, or external course. So if you put it in a course, you can move this slide in and out quickly. And if you put it in just the regular external where I have it now, it's the normal, in feed, whatever that is per revolution, per line. When you do ID grinding, if you'd rather grind back against the outer wall, the back wall of your OD, you put this on internal, and then turning the hand wheel in the same direction doesn't bring the wheel forward, it actually brings it backwards for when you're using the ID spindle. It's the only machine tool I've ever seen mechanical that can do that. So this actuating this switch here also actuates a mechanical type of switch down below that hand wheel, which in turn activates a limit switch inside the base of the machine. So when this is up like this, you can't start an automatic cycle. You have to have your stop up. All right, so now that I have that down, I can hit this switch here. This is your crossfeed start, and you'll hear the solenoid in the cabinet. Now you start to feed here. And the amount that you feed, you adjust with this knob over here. So this turns the right side on and the left side on, and this is how much you're feeding there. Well, I could turn this down. It's easy to turn this thing at the exact moment that it reverses. It's just something to do hydraulically. But you get the picture. Now it's slowing down. I think each line on here is like 2/10, so that's like feeding like 4/10 right now. Then when you want to stop your feed, you turn this off, and then you bring this back to the position, or let it feed all the way around to the zero position. And again, when you want to go around, you have to lift that up. So that's the Brown and Sharp. Show you that feed again. Start that. You hear the solenoid kick in. We start to feed. If I only want to feed on the one side, I can shut one of these off. That side it won't feed now. It'll only feed on this side. One last thing I can show you about it is this switch over here. Right now this is on lever. That means this lever starts my workhead and starts my table. So I guess somebody had the idea that if you were doing production and the machine was all set up perfectly, You would start off in that position, and this is what they call a hand wheel start. So as soon as, now that I'm up on my stop on this side of the ramp, it's actually pushing this down, making this switch here, which in turn is allowing certain things to happen, which is now in order to start the work head and the table, all I have to do is come off this hand wheel, and I can start everything up. I can stop it from right here. So yeah, rather than doing this, I don't know what the difference is, but that's what this is. In the hand wheel, you can start your work head and your table. And in the middle, actually, it'll only start the work head. One is technically for grinding, production, or whatever, and one is used in setup. And then over here is where you would turn on your ID spindle. You always got to be aware of where everything is. John, want to help me with this, please?
Sorry?
Can you help me with this? I don't want to drop it.
Won't stay up?
No, it'll stay up. I want to put it down.
Oh. That was Andy.
All right, so you got a belt here. You got to make sure it goes back on the pulley. And now down here, we switch from external to internal. And when I start up the machine, we got our ID spindle going. And when I flip this to ID, this actually moves it away from me now, rather than toward me. Pretty neat. Well, that's it. Call me if you got any questions. Thank you.